This is Human to Human, and I'm your host, Caitlin Walker. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the revamp of Human to Human. As I mentioned, I am Caitlin Walker, and I am your human host. And as I shared in the previous mini episode, if you listen to it, you know that this is the revamp of what Human to Human was, with the focus of highlighting and elevating women's stories. And as a way of helping to support more balance in our country to offset the ongoing misogyny and patriarchy that we are seeing and now has come into even more light since the results of the presidential election. And so we thought it fitting to come back to you with renewed clarity and purpose. And so that's why we're here. And I was talking with a friend the other day, and as I was reflecting on where to begin the revamp, I had reached out to a couple of badass women friends of mine and asked if they would be willing to come on, if I could interview them, if we could have dialogue around these pieces. And they said, of course, absolutely, let's do it. And as we near the holiday, schedules are getting tighter and tighter, and finding time to connect is harder to come by as we live in a fluid world. And I noticed that I was starting to get anxious. And I was starting to get flustered inside, feeling this importance, feeling this purpose, wanting to connect with you again and share, and also feeling like my hands were somewhat tied. And so I had reached out to a friend of mine and was just sharing some of those pieces with her. And her response was, "Well, sis," I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Don't you have a story to tell? What about you?" And immediately, like, my insides froze and I took pause. And I hadn't even, what was amazing to me is I hadn't even considered beginning the revamp with sharing some of my story or talking about my experience. And so, being the therapist and uh, curious person that I am, I decided to take that on a journey to explore that a bit more. And what I uncovered is familiar territory and also a bit surprising to me. And that's what I want to share a bit with you today. That piece or these emerging themes that I have a sense are going to come up throughout our time together as we go through the episodes to come and go forward here. Because what came up for me around that was fear and old patterns and beliefs around having a voice. And I've had this struggle, in particular with this podcast, actually, over the years. And one reason, uh, in part, that it paused and stopped because I felt torn inside. On one hand, I am a professional therapist and I have learned how to be mindful and cautious and thoughtful and um, all the things that one would expect, and that's ethical of a therapist to be. And I also, and in accordance with my training, have held back parts of who I am, which to me have felt appropriate and maybe have erred on the psychoanalytic side of having less of me in the room than I really am. And certainly this is dependent upon each client. And by and large, I notice that when I am in that sea, there's a good amount of who I am in my voice that gets held back. And that was curious to me, as I know plenty of other successful, ethical, professional psychologists and psychotherapists who embody more of themselves in the room. And certainly, this has been true for me at various stages of my life where I have felt like my energy has been bigger. And lately, it hasn't been. And so the struggle within me around this podcast and so when my friend and actually my partner share the same thing, and she's like, why don't you tell your story? What is it that precludes you from being one of these women? And part of it is a struggle within me of allowing myself to be human in my fullness with the parameters that I've constructed in my mind about being a therapist and the worry around who's going to hear this and what are they going to think if they're involved in my professional life to some capacity. And there's a lot of deeper layers, but it had me thinking about how I've been conditioned as a therapist in positive ways, in ways that have challenged me around being also a human. And so, as I've sat with that and mulled over it and journaled with it and had ongoing conversation with these highly intelligent women, I got to a place where they're right. And I notice how I've been holding myself back out of a place of fear or worry based on some societal construction around who and how I'm supposed to be. Son of a bitch. Again. I've I've had this instance multiple times in my life, and I share it in the manuscript that I hope to get published one day. And here it was again. And I somehow found myself in a profession. I joke about this often. I somehow found myself in a profession that has strong boundaries around allowing myself to be seen and heard in my fullness. Isn't that convenient for my survival strategies? And it's exhausting. It is so exhausting. And so I come to you on this rainy, cozy day from the Loftus to talk to you about that and to bring that truth forward as a way of freeing more of myself in hope that, in wishing that, it might also do the same for you. Because as I sat with that longer, that conflict, part of what came up was wanting to be seen as good and not doing harm. And that's been a piece that's been with me since I was young in terms of my value of integrity and authenticity and kindness. That if I allow myself to be more forthcoming, will I hurt someone in that process? And in that, I have been hurting myself. And I imagine that that is an all too familiar position that many women experience, and probably humans in general. And I also know that there's a different level of expectation of staying silent and of caretaking that women, at least in our society and culture, are trained to ascribe to. And I did. And so that was the struggle in beginning this revamp and actually allowing myself more forward. And so, in this to you and to myself, I'm committing to being me. So, here, if you have some connection to me in my professional life, to whatever degree, here is your warning that this space is going to be me in my fullness. And so there's going to be stories about me and my experience that are more personal. And so if it feels like you need to know me in a certain capacity as you have known or in certain parameters, then I would lovingly invite you to stop listening and to not. And for those of you who are ready to embark and can hold a larger space of humanness, complete with irreverence and humor and probably a lot of swear words and voice and strength and strong opinions, then welcome. And I'd be honored to have you join me. Because for me, where I am in life and where I see our culture and society, that we don't have any more time to be small and unapologetic and worry about potential outcome under the assumption or intention of doing good, doing no harm, and coming from a place of truth and kindness. The rest, out of our control. And I am burnt out on trying to control things that I have no business trying to control, knowing that I have no way of controlling them in big ways and in small ways. And I was on some jogs this morning. I do sunrise jogs often, and it's a place for me of resetting and reconnecting for the day in nature. And I don't know if anyone in the area in the East Bay here has seen them, but this week they have been breathtaking to a point where I'm running backwards when I'm in the opposite direction so I can continue to see the sunrise. I am unable to take my eyes off of the beauty. I was describing it to my partner as like a Hawaiian sunset, but in the morning with even more vibrant colors. And this morning it was no exception. It was that as well. And it starts off, I wish I had had my phone with me to take photos, and also I'm so glad I didn't because it felt more sacred and connected and joyful, like it was this secret between me and Mother Earth around like the mind-boggling beauty that was unfolding as the sun was rising. And when I would pass the occasional person, I'm like, there's a part of me that was eagerly looking to them that wanted to shout out, like, "Did you see? Do you see how much beauty there is around us?" And this morning it was dark when I left, and as I was getting my body warmed up and working out of the stiffness, the sky started turning to blues and pinks first, and these striations of clouds in the east. And as the sun rose, then this vibrant red began to emerge as the sun came up over or above the horizon. And it looked like the sky was on fire, like burning. And then as it continued on, the red started to shift into more subtle orange as it illuminated the sky. And the orange eventually began to turn into an orange yellow and then turned more yellow. And it was breathtaking. And I realized, and interesting to note for all of my woo friends out there that listen, this is on the heels of Pluto going into Aquarius on the 19th. That is when these sunrises started to shift in such a drastic way. This week has been a huge week energetically, and I know many of us are feeling it. So I just want to acknowledge that and shout out to my woo friends in the Wooniverse because there's plenty more where that came from in the coming weeks as I have different friends and colleagues come on. And so the sunrise, new beginning, new life as Pluto is coming into Aquarius. Thank God. And also, it's been a really fucking hard week. And so these sunrises have been such nourishment for my soul. And I was curious this morning and I thought of you. Like, I wonder if anyone is witnessing them and if they're sharing them. So I'll just mention it just in case. And if not, I invite you to check it out. It's not too early with the time change these days. But take a look. How can beauty and nature meet you? And what is the wisdom there? And so on the return portion home, I was running backwards to continue watching the sunrise, being careful not to trip over too many things. And as I turned around, and there was a stunning, stunning rainbow in the sky from end to end. And I followed that home for the rest of my jog. And I marveled at the color and the beauty of the rainbow and was reminded about the life that exists outside of what can feel like minutia. And I know for me as a human, I can get pretty limited in perspective or my vision. And so for me, reconnecting to nature is one way that I can zoom back out really quickly and connect to my body. And it was interesting. As soon as I crossed the last bridge to get home in the last street, all of a sudden the clouds turned gray, the rainbow disappeared, the wind picked up, and the rain started. It was wild. It was like, and it really did feel like a show that Mother Nature put on. And so I just share that with you for the visual and the reminder in case you too needed that lift. And another piece, as we're talking about voice, my challenge and struggle coming on here and in terms of where it is likely going to go in the future and trying to preemptively plan accordingly and do all the triage, which thank you, trauma has taught me how to do, and I do so well. Um, I share another piece with you that came up. A few other things actually that I would love to share with you in case it inspires or triggers thought for you. And I got disappointing news this week. A big bummer. And I'll keep it high level in part. And so I applied to grad school to a program. That was my dream program. And it was in a dream location. I spent 3.5 months working on this application, working on my research proposal, getting clear, and working through a lot of limiting beliefs around, am I good enough? Can I do it? Fear of being seen, fear of rejection, and all of the pieces that still lived in my shadow around my sense of self and value and contribution to the world. Like, within this certain box or window, things felt managed, healed, and good. And then when I embarked on a new endeavor that meant something really meaningful to me, that felt deep, it brought up a whole host of additional pieces and layers for me to sit and heal and work through. And so I've been doing that for the last 3.5 months. And I ended up sending my application in on Samhain on 10/31, which also happens to be Halloween in the US. And it felt like the right day as the veil is thin and a celebration. And so I turned it in and worked a little more on some scholarship pieces and the weeks that followed. And on Monday, I got a rejection notice. Wah, wah. And I was amazed at how much feeling it brought up for me. Words can't describe other than it's some soul karmic thing, I guess, for me as a human, because there was something in that process that felt sacred. There is an aspect of the dissertation proposal that I crafted that feels vital for me and also to contribute to the world and societal evolution. And I saw it all so clear. I saw the next steps. I saw where I'd be living. Like I visually saw and could feel the experience coming true. Some might call it manifesting. Some might say it's part of my clairvoyance, whatever it is. I saw it. And I got the no, my unsuccessful application. And I was crushed. I held it together enough to get out of the coffee shop where I checked my email. And on the walk home, I sobbed, tears streaming down my face and audible, whatever that's called, as an almost 40-year-old woman walking down the sidewalk. And it was unbelievable, the grief that came up within me. And I've sat with it over the last few days, and even now, still processing through what it was that got triggered or brought up for me. Because it feels personal and also it feels collective. It feels ancestral for me as the research connects into my ancestry. And the proposal, the research proposal and dissertation that I seek to do, it's about oral tradition and storytelling of Indigenous women, exploring identity, spirituality, human-land relations. And it got told no. I got told no. The vision wasn't valued. It wasn't seen. It was not up to standard with expectations. How many times have I heard that as a woman in covert and overt ways? Not enough, have to be perfect. Buy this beauty product, wear this XYZ, have a full-time career, be a mom, do all the fucking things, and put a smile on your face and care to give everyone else over you. I wanted to tell a different story, a story from women's perspective, addressing the very things that keep us still stuck and still making less money than men and keep us constrained in the level of influence we have in society and positions within companies, the bias that still exists in academia. the fact that there is a lack of representation and funding for women in storytelling through media, movies, music, publishing articles, books. Women are less cited or not included in certain orders in publications. There's so many instances that still reveal how muted women are. And I was gung ho to have this project be an example and an illustration of something different to what, how they say it, be the change that you want to see. And an institution told me no. And I wonder who it was directly, just out of my curious mind, right? Was it another woman? Was it a man? Does it matter? Was it the subject of my proposal? Did I lean too hard into addressing misogyny and patriarchy that still exists and cited from literary works that I found? Or is it simply that my writing wasn't good enough or something else, right? Yeah, could be a whole host or a combination. And so I grieved, which was hard to allow the feelings. So I'd go in and out of them. It was like a reality, a trajectory that I had seen. Suddenly, the rug got pulled out from underneath me, and in this moment, I think about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, right? Something that I didn't see. I'll speak for myself. I didn't see coming. Just all of a sudden, whoop! Wow, how quickly things change and can change. And so I got the bummer news on Monday, which happened to be the day before Pluto went into Aquarius, which I took note of. Not necessarily ascribing it to it. I'm just like curious, right? As it felt like a karmic soul purpose thing, and all of a sudden, redirection. And I'm also grateful to know. I heard very quickly, like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that. Very grateful to know. So I was looking up student visas and moving across to a different country, across the seas to a different country, and figuring out how much that was going to cost and just planning out the next steps as if they were going to happen. Ish, ish. I wasn't too attached and also doing my due diligence. Yeah. And so the sunrises have been really important connection points for me through the last 3.5, 4 months, and then especially this week. The rising of the light, the new day, the new birth that happens, the cycle of everything. And so after I grieved that first day and allowed myself space, and I really came to my higher self knowing like what's meant to be will be. It is what it is. And that's okay. It's not personal. It isn't. Feels like it in moments, and it's not. And so can I just be with what is and trust? And then later that day, my next thought was, fuck it. I'm just going to do it anyways. And that's a very familiar pattern for me as well. And maybe some of you have it as, in your repertoire as well. Like, maybe this program, this school is not the right vessel. It doesn't mean the project isn't, quote, the thing or going to happen because it is in a different avenue through different means. And as I sat with it more this week and in various iterations of grief and anger and frustration and depression and hopelessness and sadness and all of the feelings, I also held what I learned along the way and how I grew in terms of focus, in terms of clarity within myself around what I want my work to be. What do I feel like my purpose or calling is in this lifetime, in this moment, or this next chapter of growth and evolution in my life? As I feel this really strong pull to expand and contribute in a greater way. And women's storytelling. And so here we are, you and I, you and we, me and we, all of us together. And I wonder if you can hear the rain in the background, actually, as it's so stormy outside and like tucked in. And like I wanted like sit around the fire and listen to stories and tell stories because there is so much power in story, in truth. And so, if nothing else, that research proposal, that process of application and reconnecting into myself, let us hear. And so maybe it's this podcast that's going to be a platform to elevate women's voices while I figure out how to secure funding enough to do the other aspects of my dissertation and just do it outside of school. Because I wish I could show you, I wish you could see in my mind's eye what it is that I'm going to create, that we are going to create, that the universe is going to create through me. Because it's beautiful. As potent as that sunrise. Not tooting my horn, it's not about me. I'm just going to help to funnel this creation into being, which is what we do as women. We give life. We are bearers of life. We create in our wombs from places of darkness. And so, why would it be any different in these different instances? So I was, as I was having my, well, my, what my partner and I joke about is, my woo baby moments. That's woo as in WOO, like spiritual woo baby moments, because I have really big feelings, and when I get hurt, I feel a lot of hurt, and when I'm happy, I feel a lot of happy. I just am very empathic and feel things before I think things or otherwise, which I think is actually neurobiologically true for all of us. And I just happen to be really tapped into it. So in one of my woo baby moments and pity parties that I had for myself this week, which was perfect on the rainy days, by the way, I was listening to a meditation to try to shift my mind. And I do say try to intentionally because there's moments of meditation where I go in and I'm more open and receptive. And this was very intentional of I need to get out of this place. I'm exhausted. I've tried some other tools and so I'm going to try this one next. And I was listening to some type of self-love meditation or compassion meditation or gratitude meditation. I tried so many this week, so I can't remember exactly in this moment. Um, and I was listening to this meditation actually through Insight Timer. And if you're not familiar, check it out. It's a fantastic resource, and they have amazing teachers on that platform. Highly recommend insight timer. And I think humanity would be better off if we all meditated more often. So I was listening to this meditation, and there were three mantras that the meditation leader was inviting me to sit with each breath. And one was around self-love. Like I love myself unconditionally. Something like that. Like, yes, I love myself unconditionally. I could feel that. I could breathe into my body. I'm like, okay, got it. And then the next one was I accept myself wholly. Something like that. Like, I accept myself. Yeah, I accept all of me. That felt true. I breathed into my body. I'm like, whew, yeah, I love myself. I accept myself. And then the third one that the instructor guided me on was I respect myself. Whoosh. Everything within me came to a screeching halt. And I'm like, when I tell you that, I mean literally, like the inside of my body froze and my mind went blank. And then the next thought I had was, holy shit, I don't respect myself. I love myself. Check that box. Yes. I accept myself. Check. Done a lot of work around those two over the last 40 years. The third box, I respect myself. Ah, whew. I couldn't put pen to paper on that one. And especially not this week. And it still leaves me. And if you're watching YouTube, you could see my eyes like, and my eyebrows like wild-eyed. How have I missed that deeper piece around respecting myself? And it comes back to the caretaking that I've been conditioned to do, the perfectionism I learned as a coping strategy in minimizing my voice and my value for others, especially as a woman. And then next thing in the meditation, what happened is my mind zoomed out into various aspects of my life, and I could see how I haven't been valuing my time, my voice, my need for rest and sleep, my emotional well-being. It's like a big void in that section of the paper. If I look at the other column of giving out to others, that side was very thorough, color coded, and exemplary, if I do say so myself, right? Took care of these clients, check. Prepared for these sessions, check. Checked in on these friends, these family members, made time for them, cooked dinner for my partner, cleaned the house, went to the grocery store, got this task to do, organized this, thinking ahead to the holiday party, what I want to contribute to, how do I want to show up, and things that were just me and for me, crickets. And if I could figure out how to do sound editing in the next few days, you'll hear crickets in the background. And if so, give me an applause because that means I found out how to do it. If not, just imagine them. I could love myself. I can accept myself, respecting myself. Whew. No wonder I have felt more triggered around feeling respected lately because I'm not respecting myself. And it comes down to boundaries, it comes down to voice, all of those aspects that you will hear as themes in this revamp as we explore women's roles. And there's a big societal, cultural component of that in my experience. And then I also happened to double down and learn it from my family of origin. And then I tripled down and happened to establish it as a trauma survival strategy along the way. So it's my trifecta of not honoring, not respecting myself in the ways that really we deserve. Would I treat someone else the same way that I'm treating myself? Absolutely not. Would I tell clients and other people to prioritize themselves more in X, Y, and Z areas? Absolutely. So when I say this was a tough week, it was a tough and beautifully challenging week. Faced with no's that triggered little parts of me, child parts around fear of rejection. Am I enough? What did I do wrong? See, if only we X, Y, and Z'd better and more of, then we would have been accepted, been good enough, articulated ourselves more clearly to fit in. The second guessing wheel was on high alert and maybe playing at 1.2 speed. See, you should have done what they wanted. You should have gone with a clearer research proposal, dialed it down, been softer in what you said. And at the end of the day, I want to be true to truth. I want to be true to me. And that's what I did. And I am so proud of myself for the process, the learning, the growth that I went through over the last, actually four, no, 3.5, 3 months. And I trust that it's part of something bigger. And I am so grateful that I'm here with you again as a direct result from that process, even though it still stings to get the no. And I am so tired of waiting for someone to give me a yes that I am just going to create the path myself and see where it goes. Or you know what? Better yet, knowing me and people who know me, I'm just going to go off trail. I don't need to follow. I wasn't designed, I wasn't born to follow a trail. I kind of make up my own, and I have a good time along the way. I like my company. Remember love and acceptance? I got that in spades. It's the respect part that's a little more challenging for me these days. It even came up in conversation with my dad the other day, or he was in a conversation about, I don't know, we were talking about value and shame because as a therapist, I do often. And so we were talking about that, and my dad had mentioned something about referenced me as successful. I had this moment inside of like, what? Like, I I would never ascribe myself as highly successful comparative to X, Y, and Z. And also, thanks. And again, my brain in that moment, though, went back to that meditation. And I was like, oh, there it is again. Oh, that respect piece. And whatever success means, right? I understand it's individually defined and blah, blah, blah. And um, yeah, there it was again. And so I am going off trail here to forge my own path or to really not even create a path, just to enjoy whatever journey is ahead. Because the reason and what's going to support me going off path is trusting myself and trusting those around me who love and support me. Trusting the universe, spirit, God, whatever word you want to plug in to guide and support me. And because I have done enough foraging, off off-roading, and also on pathing, if that's a word, I trust that I can navigate. I will navigate. We will navigate next steps forward. And that's not just true in my individual life, but in our communities' lives, in our society's life, in our culture, as we're in a 2-month countdown to swearing in of our next president. We get to forge our own path. We get to say no. We get to say yes. And what are we saying no to? And what are we saying yes to? So I am saying no to disrespecting myself, minimizing myself. I'm saying no to misogyny and patriarchy. No, thank you. Had enough. And I am saying yes to myself. I'm saying yes to love. I am saying yes to truth. I am saying yes to kindness. I am saying yes to inclusion. I'm saying yes to allyship. I'm saying yes to silly and giggles and dance parties and warmth and sunrise jogs in which the sun blazes the sky. That's what I'm saying yes to. What are you saying yes to? You might even write a list. We have about another month until the winter solstice, and we actually go in more into the hibernating winter time. And so, as we're still in the season of fall, this is a fantastic time and opportunity to reflect on what I'm letting go of, what lessons I learned, what I am harvesting from the spring and summer months. And as we go into winter, what am I saying yes to? What am I needing? Mind, body, emotionally, spiritually. Where are the places that fuel me, fill me up? Where am I leaking my energy? And get really clear. And there might be a middle column of yes and maybe that gets then determined in whatever amount of yes feels right. I tend to stay away from black and white. Where's the gray? And it's okay that some things are black and white. Like, it is absolutely a no for me toward misogyny. I'm good with that, absolute. And so allow yourself the process and begin to hear yourself more and more and more. And I'm just reflecting on the sunrise image, wishing that I could transport it into your head, that you could share in it with me and also see the rainbow. Oh, it was stunning. I couldn't tell if it was a single or double because I didn't have my glasses on. So it looked like it was a double. I can't guarantee that though, because things were a little fuzzy. Plus, it was starting to rain a little bit, so my vision wasn't great. My felt sense is on point though. Yeah. So let's lean into beauty. Let's lean into love. Let's lift women's voices, the voice of the feminine, all along the way. And will you join me? If you enjoyed listening, chatting with me, maybe you're responding to me because I talk to you like you're here. Maybe you respond to me on the radio or on the app or the webs. I don't know. And you talk back. That's fantastic. I would love to hear you talking back to me. Can you send it to me? Or like let me know? And so I feel like we're building community. If you want to be a part of this human to human community, hit like, hit subscribe, share this with a friend if you think they would enjoy it. I'd appreciate it. Sounds fun. Then I'm not just imagining talking to you. Maybe one day we actually will. That's my vision and goal and dream. How fun would that be? And I can't wait for you to meet my friends and probably my family along the way and colleagues because the amount of wisdom and humor and heart that they have is astounding. And I am so grateful for them. So grateful. So hit like or subscribe if you want to continue this journey with me. Consider, do I love myself? Do I accept myself? And do I respect myself? Lean into your yeses. And per always, let's choose to love.